Have you ever participated in a conversation where, despite expressing all your thoughts, you left feeling defeated? That tightness in your throat, as if each word spoken distanced you further from your inner strength. Perhaps you're surrounded by individuals who dominate discussions, speaking over others, mocking, and asserting dominance under the guise of confidence. You might have internalized the belief that remaining silent equates to weakness, that refraining from defense is akin to surrender, and that not reacting signifies loss. But what if this perception is misleading? What if true power resides not in speech, but in its absence? Nietzsche, often misunderstood, recognized a truth that many hesitate to acknowledge. Those who speak incessantly often reveal more than intended. The compulsion to persuade can be a sign of insecurity. Society teaches us to argue, to defend our viewpoints, treating every dialogue as a battleground for truth. Yet, nature suggests a different approach, subtle, potent, and profoundly intelligent. Nietzsche perceived silence not merely as the lack of sound, but as a formidable presence. Silence unsettles, it disrupts, it compels others to introspect. This message is for those who feel overlooked, overshadowed, or invalidated. For those who exit conversations feeling unheard. For those weary of being the easy target, the agreeable one striving for harmony while others exploit their tranquility. Perhaps you've mistaken your silence for submission. But today, let's explore how silence can be your most formidable weapon. True victory isn't about winning arguments, it's about transcending the need for them. Prepare to perceive silence anew, not as a void, but as a powerful response. Let's delve into nature's insights and uncover how to navigate any situation without uttering a word. Why do we feel compelled to respond, to correct, to validate our correctness? Because we've been conditioned to believe that truth demands defense, that silence concedes victory to others. But Nietzsche viewed this as a manifestation of our deepest vulnerabilities, the fear of appearing weak. Beneath this fear lies the ego, a fragile entity that equates disagreement with personal attack, transforming conversations into conflicts. Nietzsche asserted that most individuals don't seek truth in debates, they seek dominance. They aim to reinforce their beliefs, not out of confidence, but because any challenge threatens their foundation. In this context, arguments become defensive mechanisms, a desperate attempt by the ego to maintain narrative control. What does this imply? That the urge to justify oneself indicates entrapment in the desire for acceptance and validation. Nietzsche termed this herd morality, the behavior of those living under others' expectations, striving to be perceived as good, correct, just. Yet, this pursuit of approval is what renders one vulnerable. True strength, according to Nietzsche, lies not in persuading others, but in the absence of that need. It's about upholding your vision amidst ridicule, criticism, and rejection. True strength is shown when you're misunderstood, but stay grounded. What Nietzsche offered was not power through arguments, but through self-control. Real power is the ability to stay composed while others lose themselves. It's about growing stronger by refusing to react. If you want to truly win, this is the lesson you need to learn. Arguments are like a performance, and the moment you jump into the act, you've already given up control. Nietzsche understood that a reactive mind is a mind that's already been conquered. The real threat is the mind that watches, not needing to prove anything. So, if reacting isn't the path, how do we show strength? If words fail us, how can we let others feel our presence without saying a word? Nietzsche had an answer. He believed in the concept of the Bermensch, a higher being beyond common morality who rules through pure self-discipline. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into this figure and see how silence becomes a sharp tool for influence. Are you prepared for that kind of mastery? Because from here, silence begins to speak louder than words. If this resonates with you, hit the subscribe button and join the channel. Thank you for being here. Nietzsche didn't write for the masses. He spoke to the rare few, those brave enough to face themselves and turn their darkness into strength. Most people live under the weight of social rules, approval, and shallow values. But there exists a different kind of human, rare, fierce, untamed. The Bermensch doesn't react to the world. He shapes it. And the most powerful part, he often does so in complete silence. He doesn't care about winning arguments. He avoids emotional games. He watches. He learns. He speaks only when it's necessary and often not at all, because he's realized something most people haven't. Silence is its own language, and it doesn't persuade, it dominates. His silence isn't emptiness. It's power. It's certainty. It's the voice of inner strength. While others shout to be heard, he earns respect with just a look. While they justify themselves, he listens, exposing their flaws without saying a word. His silence is like a wall. People on the other side panic, trying to guess what he's thinking. And in that panic, they slip. They reveal too much. They lose their ground. This kind of silence isn't weakness. It's calculated control. It's the wise use of energy. The Bermensch knows every word gives away a strategy. Every emotional reaction shows a crack. So he stays silent, not because he lacks thoughts, but because he has no need to explain himself. His silence says it all. It unsettles people because it reflects their own chaos back at them. In a world full of noise, those who master silence rule. Nietzsche saw the Bermensch as a creator of his own truth, his own values, his own path. He doesn't need anyone's approval, and that's why he is feared. Nothing is more threatening than a person who cannot be controlled through guilt, fear, or the desire to fit in. His silence becomes his shield against all of it. Have you ever noticed that when a person finally speaks, their words can shake the foundations of everything? But this leads us to a deeper question. Why does silence make people so uneasy? Why do so many feel uncomfortable, even threatened, when someone chooses not to respond? What's really happening inside the mind when a confrontation is met with complete stillness? Psychology holds the key, and that's exactly what we'll dive into next. Because to understand why silence is so powerful, we have to understand the mental disruption it creates in others. And trust me, it goes far deeper than you'd expect. Silence isn't just about not speaking. It's like holding up a mirror. And for many people, what that mirror reflects is hard to face. When you choose to stay silent, you're not only quieting your own voice, you're making the other person hear theirs louder. You force them to wrestle with their own words without any pushback, and that throws them off balance. Most people don't talk to express truth. They speak to shield themselves, to feel in control, to avoid facing the gap between what they say and who they truly are. So when you don't respond, their mask starts to slip. Studies in social psychology have shown that silence in heated moments is often perceived as judgment. Even if you're just quietly listening, the other person feels exposed, uneasy. Why? Because without your feedback, they lose control of the conversation. The brain shifts into high alert. The fear center, the amygdala, kicks in. Suddenly, they start projecting their own insecurities onto you. Are they judging me? Do they see through me? Do they know I'm pretending? In this silent standoff, your quiet becomes a weapon, cutting without leaving a visible wound, but deeply felt. Nietzsche grasped this long before science explained it. He saw that most people are chained to their impulses. They speak out of pride, they react out of fear, they shout because they don't want to be forgotten. But the higher soul, the self-mastered one, stays silent, not because they lack words, but because they know every word can become a weapon in someone else's hands. Every emotional outburst reveals a weakness, and silence. It dismantles manipulators. People who use emotions to control others rely on your reactions. The moment you stop responding, you break the game. They start to unravel. They rely on your participation to hold their power, and when you don't play along, their facade collapses. But it goes deeper. Silence touches old wounds, triggers past traumas of being ignored, abandoned, humiliated. The person on the other side starts realizing they're not the center of your world, that their words carry no weight, that their presence doesn't shake you. And for the ego, especially the fragile and narcissistic kind, this is unbearable. So when you stay silent, you're not simply protecting yourself. You're striking where it matters most, right in the illusion. That's why silence takes true strength. It's uncomfortable not only for others, but for you too, because it pushes against all your instincts to speak, to explain, to defend. But that's what gives it power. It demands control, and real control is real strength. Now that you understand how silence affects others, how it disarms, unsettles, and exposes, it's time to move forward. To not just observe the power of silence, but to learn how to use it with intention and clarity. In the next part, you'll learn exactly how to turn silence into a tool you can use with purpose, how to win any argument without even opening your mouth. Once you master this, no one will ever be able to control you again. It's time to stop just knowing about the power of silence and start putting it into action. Because knowing something and not using it is useless. From now on, your silence becomes a weapon, not just a way to protect yourself, but something sharp you can use to cut through people's masks when they least expect it. And the first step is simple but intense. Stay silent when every part of you wants to respond. That takes strength because everything inside will want to fight back. You'll want to explain, to defend, to prove you're right, but that urge is toxic. Every time you give into it, you're admitting you're still controlled by others, that you still care too much about their opinions, that you're still playing their game. Real silence only comes when you no longer need to prove anything. When you realize you don't owe explanations to anyone, the truth doesn't need your words to be real. The second tool of silence is observation. While others talk and try to cover up the emptiness with more words, you listen. But not like someone waiting for their turn to talk. You listen like a hunter in the woods, picking up on every sound. You hear the fear in their tone, the inconsistencies in their words, the false confidence that hides uncertainty. And you keep it all in your mind. So, if you ever speak, you do it with precision, like someone who fully understands the other person's emotions and weaknesses. The third tool is time. Let silence stretch. Pauses create tension, and tension is power. When the other person keeps talking and you stay quiet, they start to fall apart inside. They get more and more uncomfortable. Their mind fills the silence with their own fears, doubts, and anxiety. A single glance from you paired with silence can hit harder than a well-planned argument. The fourth tool is unpredictability. When you master silence, people can't figure you out, and when they don't know what's coming, they get nervous. They start second-guessing themselves. They talk more carefully. You flip the whole dynamic. You're no longer reacting, you become the center of the interaction. At this point, silence isn't about staying out of things. It's about owning the moment. But be careful. Don't confuse silence with weakness. Nietzsche never supported being passive. The silence we're talking about here is active, alert, full of purpose. You're not hiding, you're waiting, thinking, positioning yourself with a type of strength that doesn't need to be allowed to be powerful. And when the right moment arrives, when silence has already made its impact, you can say just one sentence, sharp, clear, powerful. It ends the conversation not because it was shouted, but because it was real, deep, and impossible to ignore. But now we reach something more sensitive. Up until now, we've talked about using silence to win. But sometimes it's not just about winning. It's about emotional survival. Some people aren't arguing with you. They're using you, manipulating you, draining you. And you may not even realize that you're giving them your power day after day. You're being controlled without anyone even raising their voice. And this is where silence becomes something darker, not a weapon, but a silent cry from someone who has lost control of their own life. In the next part, we'll uncover that truth. We'll reveal how you might be getting used without even knowing it. While you might think you're avoiding conflict, someone else could be taking advantage of your silence to build their own power, and nature already understood this. Is there anything more twisted than being silenced? It's when you're taught to believe that silence is your only choice. That swallowing your anger, giving in during arguments, and avoiding conflict at all costs means you're mature. That staying quiet is a sign of being balanced. But what if I told you that this could be a trap? That often, this kind of silence isn't wisdom, it's disguised submission. Nature saw this with painful clarity. What you call peace is often just your quiet surrender. Have you noticed how some people take advantage of your calmness? Your ability to listen, ignore things, and avoid confrontation. They push their ideas, impose their will, take up space that belongs to you, and you let them. You tell yourself it's not worth the fight, that it's better to keep the peace, that it doesn't matter that much. But the truth is, you're paying a very high price for this false peace. And the worst part is, you're being used by those who know you'll never react. Nature spoke of the morality of slaves, the value system built by the weak to survive in a world controlled by the strong. It's the morality of resignation, guilt, and being nice. An invisible code that teaches you to shrink yourself, to conform and still feel virtuous for doing so. But nature didn't write for those who accept defeat. Nature wrote for those who dare to break free. For those who realize they're being used and choose to stop participating in their own submission. When you accept this type of silence, the one that quietly consumes you, you're giving up your power without realizing it. You're being shaped by what others expect of you. You're no longer yourself, you are whatever others need you to be. And this is the opposite of what nature calls the will to power. The true will to power isn't about shouting or dominating others. It's about mastering yourself. It's about taking control of your own story. It's being silent not out of fear, but because you owe nothing to anyone. This silence of submission needs to die, and in its place, the silence of presence must rise. The kind that doesn't bend, doesn't humiliate, doesn't apologize for simply existing. The silence that stands firm in the midst of chaos and, without saying a word, shifts the course of things. This is the silence that nature respects. The silence of the individual who has become their own master. But how do you reach this level? How do you move from being manipulated to being the master of your own presence? How do you kill the morality of the herd inside you and become someone who commands authority even in silence? The answer lies in the most powerful figure in nature's philosophy, the Bermensch. We've talked about him before. Now it's time to understand how to become one. In the next and final chapter, you'll discover what it takes to embody this new kind of human. Because the world doesn't need more talkers. It needs those who master silence and rule with it. We've reached the final point. And now, I need you to understand something clearly. Silence is not emptiness. It's not a pause between words. True silence is pure presence. It is mastery. It shows that you're no longer reacting to the world. You're shaping it just by existing. Nature never wrote for those who are content to survive. Nature wrote for those who want to transcend. For those willing to tear off the masks society gave them, even if it hurts. The silence of the Bermensch is not the silence of the oppressed or the coward. It's the silence of the warrior who has already won, even before the battle starts. It's the stillness of someone who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone because they know who they are, and, more importantly, what they deserve. Now, look at your life. How many times have you stayed silent out of fear, guilt, or not wanting to disturb others? How many times have you let others speak for you, decide for you, or walk all over your truth? Enough. Nature would say that living this way is an offense to existence itself. Accepting this kind of silence is betraying yourself. From now on, your silence needs to change. It needs to stop being an escape and become an invisible declaration of authority, a boundary, a statement of who you are, even if no one else understands. Because who you are doesn't need to be understood. It needs to be lived, and that takes courage. Do you have that courage? Then comment below. I choose the silence that commands respect. Not just so I know you made it this far, but so you can affirm this choice publicly, this commitment to yourself. Because words have power, even when they speak about silence. And don't stop here. The next video is crucial. It will build on what you've learned here and take your mind even further. Watch it not for me, but because you deserve to go beyond. And remember, the weak shout, the strong stay silent, the wise choose when.